This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we're going to kick off with a couple of heavyweights. We're going to have Prey, the latest Predator movie. Then we've got Carter, which is doing the rounds on Netflix at the moment. Then we have a Western called The Last Son, a nice sort of wry comedy, King Knight. And then we have The Voices, a psychological thriller. Our short shot this week is Scooty. And our DTV throwback is Reigo, King of the Monsters. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Prey. Set 300 years ago, a young Comanche called Naru yearns to become a hunter like her brother Taabe. However, when an alien predator arrives, it is Naru and her tribe who are the ones being hunted. Okay, chaps, we have a Predator film, and it is the Predator film that nobody thought they actually wanted until they saw it, and then it is the best thing since sliced bread. I shall talk more about this in a minute, but let's kick off with Steve. Over to you.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Really enjoyed this. Probably the best film I've seen in a long while, to be fair. Just like the stripped back nature of it, you know, it's not, 25 muscle men with massive machine guns. It's a young Native American woman in 1719 using the skills are wild, and it's the best Predator sequel that we've had. And to be fair, it's kind of almost a shame that we can actually review it.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen it on a big screen, and I think I might have even enjoyed it more, to be fair. But props to Dan Trachtenberg. I thought he did a really good job, especially like the smoky forest halfway scene. I thought that was done really well with the trappers, and it's just so enjoyable and such a good film. It nearly ranks with the original, not quite as good, but yeah, just great, just really good.
There are a couple of callbacks at the end. And they're relatively subtle, but they're nicely done, nicely played. But other than that, this is a film which doesn't hit you over the head with the fact that it's a Predator film. There's no Alan Silvestri score, for example. There's none of that stupid jungle drums music which they shove into every Predator movie. Despite the set, regardless of where it's actually set, we've got to have the jungle drums because it's a Predator film, all that sort of bollocks. It's not a coy film. It tells you right from the beginning almost that there's a Predator landing, nearby.
Yeah.
Kind of like, the first film, the very first thing you see is the spaceship going past and firing off a pod to the planet, which a lot of people complain about, going, now we know there's a bloody alien. But I like that we know the Predator's there. We see it doing its business, but at the same time, the film has a measured pace. It allows us time to actually immerse into the Comanche's way of life. We're following this girl Naru. We get a good flavor of their culture and what it means to be what it means to be a Comanche, what it means to be a hunter, all this sort of stuff. It's not in a rush to sort of mash that into Predator. You know, it builds up nicely to the moment. You know, the Predator's sort of going out there. He's you know, messing around with snakes, with wolves. He's building up. You know, mountain lion, bear, man. You know, it's a nice sort of progression through, and it takes its time. It adds to the mythos very nicely. You know, the Predator's weapons. You know, the shield thing was, you know, it was absolutely superb. Things like that. You know, the fact that it fires these sort
projectile.
of all that. I thought this worked incredibly well. Rich, how did he get on with this one?
I don't love it as much as everyone else, to be honest.
Holy!
Come on,
let's have some balance then. Come on, let's go.
Well, no, I did find myself just sort of, you know, I was trying to sort of stay focused, and I was drifting away, and I wasn't entirely engaged by the whole thing for whatever reason. I don't know. I do think the cinematography is stunning. There's so many really great shots in the movie from cinematographer Jeff Cutter. That's the sort of key thing. I mean, this is where you look at it and you think, was this ever intended for a cinema release? Because they put so much effort into the visuals that it looks like it was intended for to be seen in cinema. So if it was always intended to be DTV, that's remarkable. They've gone to those lengths to compose the shots in such a way. You know, sort of like, for example, I mean, there's this whole establishing bit at the beginning, and as you say, the sort of tracking shot as she goes through the camp, and there's bits like, you know, like there's a bit like with the bunny rabbit in close up and sort of the field in the back. You know, all this, because of the landscape, sort of lends itself to that kind of thing. So I was very drawn to that side of things. I guess I'm a bit tired of the David and Goliath kind of plot that we've seen so much of lately. And I mean, recently we had The Princess, also on Disney Plus, which kind of had the same underestimated heroine kind of plot line, albeit without the David and Goliath bit. There wasn't really a Goliath in it. But out of the sort of two films, which kind of, because they're both turning up on Disney, they're both kind of twisting in their own way. They're twisting on the Disney princess kind of thing. And I think I didn't love The Princess, but I had quite a lot of fun with it. Whereas this, I was just kind of, I was engaged at times, but not the whole way through. Although I did think there was a couple of really nice, nicely choreographed action sequences, or you know, all training sequences, like the bit where she's throwing her axe around, and she's got it tied to the rope, and she's throwing it into the trees and stuff. I thought that was really good. But yeah, overall, I was kind of, I think one of the things that disappointed me was I was expecting something. I'd heard about it being in the Comanche language, and I expected a film that was going to be sort of quite risky and different, and you know, I had kind of Apocalypto in mind, and it actually, most of the film is in English, and it's you know,
now there is a Comanche dub available.
Yeah. There is a Comanche dub, but I was expecting the actual proper release to be Comanche, not in English, which kind of struck me as a bit. I don't know on the ins and outs of whether they would be speaking English or not, but it wasn't what I expected, and I was like, oh, it's actually all like it's just like any other movie basically, which I suppose is fair enough because it is a big, you know, blockbuster studio movie. So I was a little bit disappointed by that, but it wasn't a you know, deal breaker or anything. I think the heroine, the actress, I mean, all the casts were excellent. Amber Midthunder and the cast, because obviously it's a cast basically of unknowns, or people that are certainly unknown to me. But yeah, I mean, it did bring to my mind, you know, lots of other films that we've seen of this type, not just Predator and stuff, but it did make me think, oh yeah, I should check out XYZ movie that I've never seen. Like people were talking, you know, like Twitter, people get talking about other films of a similar vein, and Outlander with Jim Caviezel kind of popped up, and I've always meant to see that. No, and then there was Pathfinder with Carl Urban, which I'm sort of a bit hesitant, but you know, maybe I should give that. I don't even know if I might have actually been to the cinema to see it and just forgotten about it. I can't remember. But But yeah, judging as a film in its own right, as a Predator film, absolutely fine. Although I didn't quite understand why the Predator looks so different, but that's not, again, for me to worry about. I'm not like somebody who was like, oh, it has to look exactly the same. I didn't quite understand why it looked different.
Well, I suppose you've got to allow for 300 years of evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, they come from space, so does time work the same way?
Well, I guess it kind of does.
I mean, I think the design on this one is more, live, athletic in a way, rather than bulky. And even the head seems smaller than the original ones, but apparently that's to do with the advances in animatronics, and obviously they don't have to put as much in there to get the mandibles moving and stuff, from what I've read. Yeah, but I think you're right with the evolution aspects of it. It is 300 years. A creature like that could change. I mean, it could even, you never know, it could be a different species of predator.
Because the Predators movie and the Predator movie both have these two different casts, don't they? Of
like
sort of
different
predators,
tribes in a way, or whatever, or species. But I think that explains that. But yeah, even the way he moved is a lot more like not physical, but more athletic in a way. More kind of more stealthily in a way. And I really did like the touch at the end with the musket.
Yeah, nice throwback.
It's the same gun.
Yeah, exactly.
And that I thought was really, really nice. Nice Easter egg, nice touch that. And yeah, I mean, it's so much better than the Predator. I mean, that was god awful. I mean, so disappointed. Especially Shane Black directing it. I thought this is going to be great, and it was just awful. And when this was announced, I must admit I was like, great, here we go, another one. But it's probably the best thing I've seen all year.
I do take one issue with some of the marketing blurb, because it says that this is the origin story of the Predator coming to Earth, and it ain't. Unless you're going to discount the Aliens versus Predator movies as not canon, because we wish if because AVP makes it clear, because I only watched this the other week with Josh. The pyramid they discover in AVP has been around for millennia, and it contains hieroglyphics from like the Aztecs, the Incans, and the Egyptians. So it sort of predates all of them. So yeah, this isn't their first rodeo on Earth by any means. One of the most ridiculous things I've seen on Twitter about this, there's the usual sort of misogyny, unfortunately. There's a young girl who beats a predator when all these muscle guys couldn't do it in the 80s. There's all that bollocks, which is been fun to argue with. But
I don't entirely think that's I think some of the reaction to that's been a bit extreme though, because I think it is a fair observation to an extent. I don't really see a massive problem with that. With
the observation,
I never felt she was a credible threat to the Predator.
No.
Not really. I mean, she was in jeopardy quite a lot of the time, and the rest of the tribe came to her help and stuff. And yes, she did overcome him at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's it. She's not the best hunter. She's not the best fighter. She earns it throughout the film. She starts off. She starts off being a bit naff. The thing with the mountain lion, she kind of fails there, but even her brother admits at the end that actually, you had the right idea. You sort of got most of him. I just sort of finished him off.
Yeah. She loosened the jar lid,
Yeah, exactly. The whole bit in the trapper encampment when she just massacres everyone in there.
That's a good sequence. Yeah,
it's a brilliant sequence. And then you know, to a large extent, her brother does a lot of the heavy lifting, but it's her use of her brains and thinking outside the box is what actually kills him.
Yes.
At the end,
Yeah.
you know, that is her strength. She's not the best fighter, she's not the best hunter, but she can think outside the box, and she is able to figure out what the helmet does. You know, not exactly, but you know, she instinctively knows that that's some sort of like homing device. She's able to sort of figure that out and use that to her advantage, and she's able to pull off what Dutch couldn't with his trap. In the original one, you know, her trap works. There you go. So I think that's kind of the point, Rich. She's not an obvious threat to the predator. She's not the strongest. She's not the, you know, anything like that. So it's the prey that you don't expect.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, on that note, shall we score this one, Steve?
Before we give the scores, can I just I just want to give a shout out to Chris Notaril's film Warrior Predator, which was made in 2019, which essentially was the prototype for this movie unofficially, because the concept for his film was a 16th century Native American warriors forced to fight for her life against, in this case, a couple of predators. So the idea has been done before, quite interesting. You know, like it was only like a 7-minute or whatever film, but it's quite interesting to note the sort of similarities there, and that hasn't really been hugely acknowledged. I'm not saying it's a rip-off. It might just be a complete coincidence. They might have never even seen his film, but it just does seem a bit coincidental. And I think it's a film that should be part of the conversation, and is, you know, I would recommend that people sort of seek it out of curiosity to sort of check it out. I mean, it was made on a micro budget, and it's compared to Prey, it's a completely, you know, different viewing experience, but conceptually it's very intriguing to look at the two in comparison.
Cool.
Have you ever seen it?
I haven't actually. I was saying James Bush's film.
Warrior Predator Dark Ages.
Dark Ages, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
That was very good.
That's very good quality, that film. Yeah, there's loads of films that have explored the Predator in different eras and stuff. So they are worth. There's quite a few that are worth checking out actually, but it's just this one in particular, which isn't the best. Yeah. So it's just conceptually quite interesting, the similarities there. Sorry to.
It's interesting as well, actually. I mean, you could do a really nihilistic horror one with the Predator. You could almost turn it into a slasher and just have everyone die, because at the end of the day, at some point, these predators are going to come out on top. Otherwise, as a species, they'd be, you know, gone. Because, you know, every time we land on a planet, these plucky, you know, indigenous creatures end up killing us for some reason. So you know, there have to be some which are going to sort of win at the end of the day and then head off back home with all their trophies. So, you know, imagine if they did like a proper dark slasher where, you know, everyone dies and no one knows why, and then just, you know, that would be interesting, I think. Anyway, let's score this thing. Steve.
9.
Rich.
7.
Okay, I'm definitely a 9. I'm with Steve on this one. It's
I know I'm a low. I wish I'd loved it as much as everyone else. I was just not. I'm not for some reason, I just didn't click with it.
Yeah, that's
I like Last of the Mohicans, stuff like that. I did enjoy some of those, but yeah,
this one just didn't work for me.
I feel bad.
Maybe on another viewing, maybe now your
it might need some time to sort of bed in. Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Maybe put the Comanche dub on next time and see how we get on.
That would be quite interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would. There we go. Okay, so 2 9s and a 7 for Prey. It is on Hulu in the States and on Disney Plus in the UK and in Europe. Please go check it out. It is doing gangbusters at the moment, and why not? Our next review is Carter. In the midst of a zombie-like outbreak, a Korean operative called Carter awakens with no memory of who he is. A female voice talking in his head and an army of CIA operatives trying to kill him. He is guided to rescue the kidnapped daughter of a scientist and bring her to North Korea. But is there anyone he can really trust? Now, Steve, a few years back, the same director made a film called The Villainess, which I really liked. But it did have this very lengthy fight sequence at the beginning, which was like done from like first person perspective, like a first person shooter. So you know, the camera view was the person.
Yeah,
and it lasted
it.
about lasted a good 10 minutes of the film running time, and it was a bit of a pain, to be honest. It was very technically well done, but for 10 minutes of the film we're like going, I don't know what's going on, I don't know who I'm meant to be or anything like this. You know, it was bizarre. Unfortunately, the director has decided to take that bit and run with it for a whole film. I don't think there is a single moment in this film where the camera sits still. It is proper ADHD filmmaking.
Yes.
It is all over the place. I must admit, I've kind of calmed down on this a little bit since I watched it, but I still hate it. It is, you know, it is an action film. It is full of action from start to finish, but it doesn't feel like a film to me for any stretch of time. It feels more like somebody's walking me through a video game. You know? I feel like every now and again, you know, someone's going to flash on the screen to tell me to start bashing the A button, you know, to get to the next bit. That's kind of what it felt for a lot of this. You know, there's a lot of technical skill on show in the way the camera moves. You know, it reminded me a little bit of Michael Bay's Ambulance to a certain degree, and a certain sequence in The Raid 2, where the camera is sort of passed between cars and things like this. There's a lot of that sort of stuff going on, but for a lot of it, it's just like you just want to tell the screen just like calm down, you know, just sit still and actually film what's going on for a minute and give us a bit of context. It's, you know, it was ridiculous. How did you get on with this?
Yeah, about the same as you, really, because it just starts off, it just throws you in there. You know, there's no gentle walking in. It's bang, 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 and that's it all the way through. And it was like Hardcore Henry, but doubled. Because I remember rightly, that was only about 70 minutes long, or something ridiculous like that. This is 2.25 hours.
There was a point in this where me and my wife sort of paused it, to, you know, a quick loo break sort of thing, go get a drink. And I looked at the screen, I went, oh my God, we've still got 50 minutes of this. I was like, I thought this was nearly finished. And it's like, we got 50 more minutes of this.
And it's just like trying to up the ante, up the ante. And there's so many double, triple, quadruple crosses, and you don't know who's who, and you don't know what's happening, and it does lose, you know, its style of the substance. It's like it's like a KFC. You eat it, it tastes all right. You know, there's no real nutritional value to it because it's not going to do anything. It's just overblown. Even like the one shot kind of thing that they're trying to do. You know,
but it's like, not. I mean, it was so shoddy. It was, you know, it was so rough around the edges during those bits. You know, you could see the jumps between, you know, where they've had to sort of stop and start again. So I tell you the bit which really lost me. The bit where I really sort of like zoned out, is like, you know, bounced me out of the movie completely. there's a sequence. There's a very good sequence aboard an airplane.
Yeah.
Which reminded me a little bit of World War Z. Funny enough, the Brad Pitt one.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that, but it ends up with people being thrown out of the airplane. There's only one parachute. The bad guy's got the parachute. There's only one gun, sort of thing. And there's this bit where he knocks the gun out of the guy's hand while he's trying to get the parachute, and then sort of flies off without the parachute, floating through the air, and then finds the gun.
Yeah.
And grabs it and starts shooting at the guy. And I was like, no, how on earth, in all of the sky, are you going to find a gun which is falling, falling at terminal velocity?
The bit that got me was, well, again, it's like, it's going on, and then all of a sudden it's like they bring back the zombies, and the bit on the bridge, I was like, oh, come on, seriously.
Well, it's like, how did the zombies get at both ends of the bridge?
Exactly. And even having kind of like putting the kid in it as well.
Yeah.
In the middle of, she's like falling out of a building, being thrown from a van to a motorbike,
you get the feeling, plane. Yeah, you get the feeling that at some point he's going to turn around and realise she's dead.
Well, yeah,
it's like,
oh shit,
we don't seem to have all of her left here.
Yeah.
The other bit as well, it did feel like it was kind of making itself up as it went along. There's a bit where he jumps off. I think he's on a motorbike with the two kids, and he jumps off a cliff, and all of a sudden he lands on top of a train. I'm like, where the fuck did that train come from? Where the hell is that train? There's no train track or anything beforehand. It's just like they land on it. Ridiculous.
Some people might enjoy. I mean, I was talking to a colleague at work, and she doesn't like blood or guts or anything like that. I think she said she lasted 4 minutes. She turned it off.
Yeah,
and his dad carried on
at the beginning. I know.
And her dad carried on. I think he lasted 10. And he said it was knocking him sick, just the camera movement.
Camera movement's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some really standout sequences. It has to be said, but they need to be captured within something a bit more conventional. There's no, it was all using technique to drive the story. There was no sort of actual visual storytelling going on at all. It was all exposition. Stuff being yelled in his ear, or stuff on a TV screen or something. Until we get to the very end, and there's a couple of flashbacks and things which sort of fill in the gaps. But we've kind of been in this situation before. Not only a couple of months ago, we had Spirit Walker, which was I don't know if you saw that. That was
decent.
It was very good. At the same time, it kept its cards very close to its chest. It didn't sort of tell you too much. It allowed you to figure things out as you went along. But
you actually gave a shit about people, innit?
Exactly. But this one, you don't get the chance to give a shit about this guy. It's like he's being pursued, therefore you have to like him. You have to root for him because he's the guy who's being pursued. That's basically the thinking behind it. Or he's the guy that the zombies are tracking, so you have to get behind him. There was another bit which I thought was just absolutely ridiculous when he takes the controls of a helicopter, because of course he can fly a helicopter.
Oh yeah.
And suddenly the helicopter just spazzes out. He does something to the helicopter which makes it sort of float upside down.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was like a badly rendered video game from like the 90s. It's like,
well, that's the thing. He's hanging out of the helicopter, turning it upside down. His head's 2 foot away from the blade.
Yeah.
And he's not getting sucked into it and cut into pieces. It's like, right, okay.
It's
sometimes you have a suspension of disbelief, but this took the piss with it. It really
absolutely did. Yeah, absolutely. This is the sort of film you put on when you come home from the pub with your mates and you all fall asleep in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Scores on the doors, Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
That's generous. I'm giving this a 4. I should be the guy loving this, but seriously,
I'll be
no.
honest. I kind of thought you would. To be fair,
I did not get on with this at all. I don't know if it's because I'm old, maybe I'm out of touch. No, it's the children that are at fault. So yeah, a 6 and a 4 for Carter. Currently being shown on Netflix. If it floats your boat, go check it out. Our next review is The Last Son. An outlaw called Jesse LeMay is cursed by a Cheyenne chief that he will be killed by one of his own kin. So naturally, he goes on a killing spree, murdering all of his children that he has sired over the years, until there are only 2 left. One is a girl, the other is a psychopathic outlaw himself. I'm usually quite hard on westerns. They tend to be, these days, quite low budget, shot on video, shot in a not exactly widescreen sort of ratio, just using the typical sort of like reenactment kind of props and things, and that's exactly what they feel like. They feel like someone's weekend hobby. This is different. This is a proper film with proper epic scope to it. I knew I was going to like this from its opening shot, which is a nice sort of widescreen, sort of wide country shot with a horse rider riding across the distance with a bit of narration going over the top. So we got Sam Worthington as this guy, who worked for the US government to try and kill out the Cheyenne. So they could grab the land and things like that. And one of these chiefs cursed him with this thing, saying, you will be killed by one of your kin. So he does. He literally goes around sort of finding all these people that, he slept with a lot of hookers over the years who'd had kids, and he goes and tracks them all down and starts killing these teenagers and things, until there's 2 left. One of them is this girl, and the other is this guy, and he's a nasty piece of work. He was in the army himself. He deserted. He stole a Gatling gun, and he's been using this to rob banks. It is a very good film. We also have Thomas Jane popping up as a cavalryman who, as a child, had been adopted by the Cheyenne. And he's got this sort of like 3-line tattoo on his chin, and wears an eagle feather in his cavalry cap. Quite an interesting character. It's a very decent, pretty nasty at times western. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. I bet you guys didn't manage to catch it.
No.
It was the double features of a western and Sam Worthington were like two like sort of no thank you kind of.
I don't mind Sam Worthington. I mean, he's way past that point where he was being shoved into every coming blockbuster. So he was in Terminator 4. He was in Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans, things like that. But now he's doing more character-driven stuff. This one, he's sort of quite bedraggled. He's got a sort of huge beard and wears this massive sort of fur coat. There's this horrible sequence at the end where everything sort of comes to a head, and this son of his is got a posse together and is sort of searching for him. and the cavalry guys have actually arrested him and put him in a jail. But he sort of like asked to go to the loo, so they take him out to the outhouse, and he escapes by digging through the outhouse, and comes out covered in shit. You know, it is everywhere. It's all of his clothes and his hair, and it's absolutely gross. And he's still managing to sneak around this town. It's like, you know, covered in snow. People are sort of looking for him. And I'm thinking, surely the smell will be enough to give away his position. But despite that, I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's can be a bit nasty at times. Some good prosthetic work. You know, people get shot, and you can sort of see the bullet hole, and you know, you can see the blood sort of still pumping out of it and things like that. So it's all very well done. It has got quite a slow pace at times. It just allows things to build on their own, and it has this interesting. I mean, it's got a very good score as well. The score for this is very good, but every now and again it does this thing where it'll just go really quiet, and you know something violent's about to happen. You know, it'll be quiet for like 1, 2, 3 beats, and then something nasty will happen out of nowhere. But yeah, he sort of get to look for them. But yeah, no, this is very, very solid. I'll give this a good solid 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend it. Our next film is King Knight. Thorn is a male witch and leader of a small coven of New Age witches with his life partner Willow. However, a dark secret from his past is about to disrupt everything in his life. Okay, so this is the latest film from Matthew Gray Gubler and Richard Bates Jr. They worked together on numerous films such as Trash Fire and Suburban Gothic, 2 films I really enjoyed. I think Matthew Gray Gubler also turned up in his other film, Incision, which I haven't seen yet, but heard interesting things. I really enjoyed this, but before I say what I thought about it, over to Steve.
What a pile of shit. I'm sorry. I don't know how you enjoyed any of this at all. There's no story. Every single character is annoying as hell. What the supposed big thing in his past that he's hung on is ridiculous. The whole film is trivial. Like we say about Carter, there's no substance there whatsoever. It's just absolute shite. I'm sorry. I don't get what you got out of this. I mean, the one good thing, it's mercifully short. It's only 81 minutes, and which is, you know, it's kind of a shame because I like Angela Sarah. I think. Yeah. I like her. She's great in Westworld and stuff like that. But this is just terrible. I mean, how many times in one film do people have to say, what is it, the butthole is full of poop or something? But it said 40 times in about 3 minutes. And you know what it kind of reminded me of? Like a slightly supernatural Napoleon Dynamite. It leads up to the exact same thing, and that got me tits as well. And this, there's nothing to it. It's so shallow and stupid and awful. I mean, it's supposed to be a comedy. I didn't even grin.
Oh dear!
I didn't even smile. No, awful.
Not your cup of tea.
Awful, Mike.
Steve, Rich, any words of kindness from you?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. I thought it was great. I thought this is like a this is going to be like a late night favorite. I think it's just got a cult audience. I think is just going to gather around this one. I just think there's so many like quotable lines and bits and quirky characters. I just thought it was great. I just loved it. It's like the sort of I mean, it is kind of that Office style of comedy, where it's kind of sort of cringy comedy, or sort of characters who think they're kind of self-important and whatever, and you know, you've kind of got to, you either click with it or you don't, probably. I mean, I don't know about I mean, another thing that came to mind, although I've never seen any of his work, is Taika Waititi. I was thinking, is this a what we do in the shadows ish kind of thing? I don't know, because I've not seen it, but I certainly sort of saw. I have seen the Thor movies, and the sort of there's elements of the comedy in those that I think are similar here, in terms of some of the characters and the sort of self-importance that they sort of ascribe to themselves. But I think there's also a genuineness and a heartfeltness to it, because, you know, although they are being ridiculed. This is ridiculing the, you know, sort of that whole, you know, sort of culture. And there is a sort of, you know, it's an easy target-ish kind of thing to it. But I think, you know, that, you know, they do this sort of thing for everything. So I don't think it's too malicious. I think there's a certain, you know, I don't think they're like down on people who live these sort of lifestyles and stuff. I think they've just crafted these characters, and I think they're genuine. What I like is that they're genuine characters, and there's nothing that sort of feels mean-spirited about any of them. I quite like the character, even like the main guy, you know, Thorn. He's not I didn't find him an unlikable character. He seemed very genuine in the journey that he's taken from being, you know, the guy he was, you know, in the early years to who he is now, and the journey he takes. And yes, it does end. I mean, you, Steve, you mentioned Napoleon Dynamite. I was brought to Little Miss Sunshine with the sort of the working towards the sort of dancing sort of conclusion there. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, this is kind of indie, quirky comedy, and I had a great. I really liked it a lot, and I will definitely watch it again at some point.
I did like this a lot. As I said, I'm quite a fan of Richard Bates's earlier films.
Do they have the same sort of humour?
Yeah, I think Trashfire is a bit more acerbic, and there's definitely a running theme with his films about these sort of very malicious, overbearing mothers. Because we get a cameo from Barbara Crampton, but I assume, and I thought she was really good. That tirade that she has, which sums up exactly why Thorne hadn't introduced her to Willow in the past. I just really like these characters. I like the, you know, when he has to confess to the coven, and it sort of exposes his own kind of prejudices and assumptions about who would be drawn to a coven, you know, because they're all telling him, look, fuck you, man, we're all successful business people, you know, we're not the losers here, you know, we're not the outcasts, you know, there's that sort of element, this sort of middle class kind of people looking for, you know, an alternative lifestyle. There's a couple of bits I absolutely love. The conversation with the mother, with Barbara Crampton's character, I thought was really good. But the whole bit where he goes on a walkabout, and you know, which involves like screaming at sort of picnickers and sort of yelling at
the rocks and the pine cones,
and the pine cone and the rock. I thought that was brilliant. I thought the voice acting for that was superb. You know, I just generally really enjoyed it. I certainly recommend Suburban Gothic, which is a proper sort of ghost story kind of thing, but very funny as well.
That's with thinking of sort of the Marvel stuff. Who's the actress who's in that? Because isn't it Kat Dennings?
Not sure
who's in that with him, because obviously she's in. I don't know if she was in Thor or one of the Thor movies, but anyway.
She's in the first one.
Oh yeah, that's right. She was in the first one. Yeah, she turns up. Yeah. But the she had a cameo in.
Yeah, it was
Love and Thunder. Yeah,
it
Kat
was
Dennings
Dennings,
and Gubler did that. But
Mhm.
yeah, that one's on Freevee, I think I found.
All
And
right.
I was tempted to give it a watch.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Trash Fire's under, I think that's got an alternate title, but
It
I can't remember
has
what it
got,
is.
yeah, I think
Because it came out over
Shrew's
here
Nest or
under a
something?
different title, I think.
Might be called
Sorry?
Shrew's Nest or something like that.
No, I can't remember. I think they changed it to something different. I can't remember anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to check out some more of his work because I've never seen one of his movies, and I've never seen Matthew Gray Gubler or any of the cast in this.
Because
actually, when I was watching it, I was thinking I recognised one guy, and I'm pretty sure he was one of Larry Clark's old crew. So he was like the guy with the little moustache.
Oh yeah.
Can't remember what his name. Josh Fadden, I think, is Neptune. I think
Neptune,
he was in
yeah.
I think he was in Teenage Caveman. So I'm just gonna check see if that was who it was. No, I don't think it was. No, I thought he looked a bit like well, he looks the same as somebody who used to be in who was in Teenage Caveman, the Larry Clark version, but I don't think it is him. But yeah, I don't think I've seen any of this cast in anything then. But I liked it. I liked it. I had a great. So that's why I'm reacting this way, because of Steve's kind of views of it. I think I was really enamored of it. I thought I thought it was a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, how are you going to score this one?
3.
Rich?
Yeah, an 8 from me.
Yeah, it's a solid 8 for me as well. Obviously, mileage will vary. If you like Steve, you may not just get this. I will point out as well that a lot of the things like IMDb, etc., you may see this being categorized as a horror comedy, mainly because it's a witch. The main character is a modern day witch, and sort of algorithms and search engines.
There's nothing horror about
there's
it
nothing
at all.
horror about this.
And there's nothing funny about it as well.
We did. Oh, another thing, we get Ray Wise as Merlin.
That's right.
The wizard in some sort of sequences and stuff. So yeah, Ray Wise is always good to see.
He is.
So yeah, we've got Ray Wise, we've got Barbara Crampton giving some sort of solid support. So yeah, I'd said there's nobody I know in this, but yeah, those two are sort of like the sort of familiar ones who turn up in a few scenes.
Absolutely.
And the girl and somebody on the Annalyn McCord, who I've seen in a few things, she actually does a vocal performance in this, but I didn't recognize her at the time. It's only because I'm looking at IMDb that I can even see that. So yeah, this I say, yeah, I do hope people check it out, because it's not had it's not getting a digital physical release. It's only digital, so it's something to seek out.
Definitely go check it out. 2 8s and a 3 from us. There you go. Our next review is The Voices. Sarah wakes up with no memory of who she is and has to rely on her ever-present husband to explain what happened. As she tries to adjust, she realizes that her husband and their housekeeper are keeping things from her. Every now and again, Rich and Steve, we get a film on our list which I absolutely dread watching. It's like, oh God, here we go. All right, then let's put it on. Let's see what it is. And it totally subverts my expectations. So, much like the Craze film we covered at the beginning of the year, the Code of Silence. I was pleasantly surprised by this. It could be because I had low expectations going in, because I'd read the synopsis of what it was about. I thought, oh, this is going to be incredibly dull. And it could have been. It could have been incredibly dull. It could have been sort of very nuanced and subtle about what it wants to do. But no, this is a film which basically is incredibly bombastic and loud and full of really interesting sort of visuals and editing. I ended up really enjoying this. Steve?
I enjoyed it for about an hour and 10. And then you get the twist. And that kind of brought it crashing down for me. Because up to that point, I thought the acting was great. like you say, the editing, the filming, great. The effects were great. It's just that ending, that twist. It dragged it down for me. I didn't see the point in it, to be fair. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it just took away like everything that happened, you know, because like that first scene was phenomenal. I mean, I was like, whoa, hang on. That grabbed me, you know, dragged me into the story. And then you get the credits, and, you know, she wakes up after apparent suicide attempts and stuff like that. And also, I thought the pacing was great as well. It moves at a nice pace. It's not too... I mean, obviously, there's a few jump scares in there, you know, when it's showing her crawling out of the bath. And, you know, every time it gets a little bit longer, it's still not getting to the end or to what she needs to see and stuff like that, you know. And it does kind of work as a metaphor when you get to the end, but it just jolted me out of the film, that ending. Didn't work at all for me, the end.
Rich, how did you get on with the voices?
I think like you, I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was expecting something a bit more, I don't know if low rent is the right term to use, but this is a very polished, you know, high standard production. It is formulaic, and it's, you know, it's something we've seen a lot of. I mean, it is the is she crazy plot once again, and, you know, the I mean, they even use the picture of, you know, the young woman vulnerable in a bathtub kind of thing. That's kind of overused imagery. I mean, Mara with Olga Korolenko, I think, did the same thing. There was another Olga Korolenko film called Bay of Silence that we covered, which I think was another is she crazy kind of movie, which I don't mind. You know, familiar stories, that's not a problem. I thought this one was very well told, but I do agree with Steve that I kind of lost it at the end. I actually had to go back and watch I had to go back and watch it again, because I got very lost about what on earth was happening. And I think I agree with Steve. I don't really think that kind of was the right direction for the story. I think it does, to a certain extent, undermine it, because I just sort of questioned it all, basically, rather than actually feeling, you know, any sort of sense of satisfaction or closure. But I thought up until, you know, that point, and say that's not a deal breaker, I did really enjoy it overall. I thought that saying the pace, the visuals, you know, the cinematography, and the way the whole thing was shot, and the sort of the unsettling sequences, like the, you know, what she sees her mother doing, and some of the other sequences. I thought Shawn Ashmore was excellent as the, you know, because there's a whole kind of gaslighting aspect to the plot, to his character and stuff that they're playing with, and I thought he was really intense. I mean, he's a very, you know, he's eternally young looking kind of guy. You know, he's very youthful looking. He's always going to look like a teenager to a certain extent. But I thought he really sold it well. He was very. They also dressed them very, you know, the costume department, you know, they dressed them very well. He was very, and I think this was designed to sort of be reflective of his character. Everything was very particular about his look, and I know that's quite a conventional thing anyway. But his hair and his beard, he was very, very well groomed, I guess you could say, and sort of the way he was dressed and stuff, and that was all sort of reinforcing this kind of control kind of personality that he has. I thought that worked excellently. And obviously the heroine played by Andrea Longo, she's, you know, it's the kind of you know, the sort of vulnerable, you know, heroine, you know, she's very kind of she's not a strong character. She seems quite weak, but she has kind of going back to what we were talking about with Prey. It was like they have to find the strength. Although in Prey, she's a really strong character. You can tell that from the start. But in this one, she's kind of got that meekness, you know, that a lot of these characters have, and she has to kind of. She doesn't really grow a huge amount, but that she does, you know, her character does, you know, the experiences that she has and the sort of the difficulties and you know the sort of the manipulation and how she responds to it and stuff. And I thought she carried that really well. I'm not familiar with her work, but I thought, you know, she carried the film very well with Shawn Ashmore in support. And then there was the creepy housekeeper lady, and so it's quite a small cast. There's only like 4 or 5 people in it, I did really think it was a very solid psychological horror up until the end.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I mean. I don't want to sound down on it because I was enjoying it until then. It just really, like I said, came out of nowhere and just kind of ruined it in a way.
Well, they peppered the little bits throughout, and then they kind of pick up those threads.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, but
I just felt it didn't. I mean, I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything, so
yeah.
But I didn't feel it was quite.
Yeah.
It kind of took the film in a completely different direction, which I was like, I don't really. I feel like I'm watching a different movie now, which was a shame. But I definitely think it's still one of the better sort of films of this type that I've seen recently. There was the Maggie Q one where she was I can't remember what that I think was. She was going on holiday and you know, she was mistrusting of what was going on in the environment. There was the other one where the girl went to India and stuff. We've seen a lot of these kind of characters where films which are focused on you know, horror movies with a female character who's not sure what's going on. Are they, you know, is it all in their head and all that sort of stuff? And I think this is one of the best of those.
Wasn't it? That one where they're going to this villa in France to be you know, to be labourers,
weren't they? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Safe Inside, I think that one.
That's
was.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, which had a lot. Right. That also played with. I mean, went off in some other sort of weird sort of sci-fi directions and stuff as well. Not sci-fi, but you know what I mean. It was there was a whole other thing with that. But yeah, I quite like these sort of movies that sort of play with different, you know, reality and, you know, dreams and things and cycle, you know, identity, stuff like that. And I thought this was very solid. Exceeded my expectations. It was originally called The Free Fall, and it's been retitled as you say as The Voices. I don't think that's a good retitle. I think The Free Fall is a bit of an unusual title that maybe they weren't sure of, but The Voices is just way too generic and really doesn't fit the film at all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I really did like this. I didn't think I was going to. But yeah, I think from, you know, it's the editing, the visuals that it packs in, it keeps things interesting. It never lets you sort of get bored with what's going on. And you know, Shawn Ashmore's character, he is just so endearingly creepy, you know, and rocking these turtleneck shirts, sweaters all the time, which makes you wonder why. Well, you know, it's a weird sort of fashion choice, but I mean, he looks great in it. But at the same time, I'm thinking, what's he hiding? But yeah, no, it's a very, very solid film. I think you guys are right. It's sort of it's too much of a tangent that it heads off in at the end, even though, as you say, you know, there are a few breadcrumbs towards it earlier on. It just doesn't. It's too much of a leap to get to where where it wants to be.
Mike, did you recognize the director's name?
Who is the director of this one?
So it's directed by Adam Stilwell, whose previous film I know you've seen.
Yeah.
It's called The Triangle.
Oh, I love The Triangle. The Triangle is superb. I thoroughly recommend The Triangle. It's a found footage film about a group of filmmakers who are invited to go to this commune in the middle of the California desert by one of their friends who's part of this new commune. And, you know, you're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're waiting for everything to go horrible. The funny thing is, I'd only just watched Ty West's The Sacrament, you know, just before seeing this,
Mhm.
which is based on the Jonestown massacre. So I'm kind of waiting for there to be some sort of enigmatic, malevolent sort of leader that's going to turn everything to shit, but it doesn't happen. This commune is actually working. It's thriving. It seems pretty idyllic, and they have this big festival, and then one of the guys comes up to the filmmakers and goes, "Now we want to show you what you're really here for," and that's when the film changes, and it's brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
So do you see it? I mean, this is the
No, this is
this
completely
guy's
different.
this is only his second feature, and it's like 4 or 5 years between the two.
Yeah.
Do you see a sort of connection of themes and stuff between them, or is
No,
or is it completely different kind of movie?
it's completely different genres, completely different type of filmmaking, because that was a found footage style film. Although more of a sort of fakumentary style found footage thing, because it is an actual completed thing. But it is one of the best, as far as I'm concerned. I think it really works. So I'm really pleased that he's managed to sort of direct something different, but at the same time as engaging, despite the ending. the ending of the other one, the triangle, absolutely rocks. It is brilliant. But unfortunately, this one, it's just too much of a leap.
The other thing about so I'm talking about the way the film looks. The cinematographer of this film is James Neist, and he's done films like Annabelle.
Oh yeah.
So he's clearly worked in that sort of high end horror kind of space. I don't know if he was the main cinematographer or like a supporting one.
I think that's one of the things about this film. It's not washed out. The colors are quite vivid in this. When there's blood,
dark, but it's crisp.
Yeah,
and,
but exactly, it's very crisp. And when there's things like blood, there's proper blood. So it's a proper blood color. It stands out. So yeah, it's not one of these sort of typical anemic, sort of washed out sort of horror movies. It's got sort of depth of color to it.
Yeah, I did the Haunting of Bly Manor. Was that a Netflix?
Yeah.
Yes.
Show or something? Yeah, he did that as well. Series. Yeah. Yeah. So Annabelle was director of photography on Haunting of Bly Manor. He did. Yeah. So this guy knows his stuff. So
absolutely.
That's there's a lot of professional people involved in what is a little movie that's sort of just getting a pushed out with a title change on DTV kind of thing, but it's cut above, I'd say.
Yes, absolutely. Scores on the doors, Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm splitting the difference with a 7. So a 6, a 7, and an 8 for The Voices. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Scooty. A scooter-hating rollerblader called Jake ends up meeting a robot made up of scooter parts. I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to like this to begin with. It was just so weird. But this grew on me, and the technical skill involved in this blew me away, basically. So, there are definitely overtones of things like Toy Story 3 in there, bit of Short Circuit mixed in there, but I think it kind of stands up on its own. Steve, what do you make of Scooty?
Probably go with you, Mike. At the beginning, I was like, because the lead character is a dick, basically, and he's got this very weird obsession with hating scooters, and then Scooty comes along, changes the whole thing, and he's like the biggest, most lovable character since Johnny Five in Short Circuit, that kind of thing. And yeah, technically it's fantastic. I'm presuming it was made on a shoestring, but the work and the effects are astounding. And yeah, it really did. It, won me over. It's really, really, really enjoyable.
Cool. And Rich, what do you make of Scooty?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I just think it is weird. It's kind of got this unlikable central character who doesn't really learn any lessons much over the course of the movie. They still, they're going around being, antisocial and stuff basically, and that's kind of they don't actually stop doing that. It's kind of they just sort of go on it. But the sort of I guess you'd term it, one of these sort of bromance kind of things that develops. I just thought that was really well done. I completely bought into it. The performance of the robot, is obviously all CGI, but with the voice of Riley Olsen. So you got Matt Zone as the lead character, Jake, and Riley Olsen, who's the co-writer with director Peter France of the script. He's playing the character, and he just completely brings it to life. He's a very Johnny Five, completely a very endearing, lovable character. It kind of the setup is, as you say, Jake hates these scooters and that, which is I never even saw these kind of electric scooters all over the place until I went to Poland, and we went to Gdansk, and there were tons of them everywhere, strewn all over the place. And obviously it's like some sort of international thing now. If you go to certain cities and they just have these scooters, you can rent. If you got them in where you
we got one. Well, they kind of sort of centralized, but every now and again you see one sort of on the outskirts of town.
Yeah, I know. These ones had like Uber and stuff. I think there's different companies do them. But anyway, so this is what he's railing at, and he's a rollerblader, so he's like completely against them. But he doesn't really learn his lesson. But the film has such an energy and pace about it. It's 18 minutes long, but it's like it is a whole movie. It's like what you would see in a feature, but they've just truncated it, and like there's the initial sort of setting them up, and then the lightning strikes and Scooty gets created, and they sort of scared each other, and then they're friends, and then Scooty's experiencing life, and then they go on a caper, and then there's we're going to go our separate ways, we're having a falling out, and then we're going together. They just work it really well. And yes, the visual effects and some of the bits are a bit stretched and don't possibly quite work, but you can't really criticize too much what has been achieved here. And also I absolutely love the score. I thought that there's a great theme. I think the composer is actually British, from looking into some of it. The soundtrack to the film is actually available online. Benjamin Squires is the composer. I just thought and he does things like he's done various projects, but including things like trailer music and that. But the main theme to Scooty, I think it's a really great piece of music, and the whole thing feels like a little blockbuster,
Yeah, definitely. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole sequence where he's going, because I think it's set in San Francisco, isn't it?
Yes.
And, when he's going down the hill, it's sort of zooming around the cars. And I thought, well, that was all really, really well done. Some of it was deliberately sort of back projected and stuff. Some of it looked pretty seamless, but other bits were sort of made to look a bit more sort of deliberately sort of back projected. But yeah, I thought it was a superb sequence. And when he grabs onto the plane and everything, it's just really, really good. And that they do manage to give Scooty a very expressive face. The sort of eyebrows and the way his eyes light up and things like that. They do a lot to sort of bring the character to life. So
if people want to sort of visualize the sort of thing we're talking about, it's basically the visual effects here are at that kind of Michael Bay Transformers kind of level. But with this character, it's not like it's all overly complicated. He's got quite a you can see what he's doing, and how his eyes are moving, like the lights on his eyes, and the way that they when they're trying to be expressive, certain lights will go out to change the angles and whatever. And that's it. It's not all these servos sort of winding up and sort of turning around and things. It's he is composed of quite simple parts of these scooters and that, but he's got a complicated. I mean, it must have been great. It must have taken ages to animate it all. And really, it's
Well,
still
to
really
design
complex.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that early bit, when they go out and they start throwing the scooters around, and Scooty chucks a
One
scooter
through
through a window.
through the
Yeah.
shop window. Yeah.
That's a great sequence. That's just that moment alone. It's like would that's the kind of thing that you would see in a mega budget blockbuster kind of thing. And here they've done it on what is effectively, I would guess, like a shoestring. I think they're probably working a very small team trying to pull this off, and releasing it free on YouTube and stuff via the corridor channel.
How him managing to convince a shop to allow you to sort of smash the window.
Well, no, I think that's all CG. That's the thing. I think that's all just really good CG.
Yeah.
It looks like they really did smash a window.
That's why I'm pretty sure it was CG, but very, very good CG.
That's the best kind, when you don't even realize that there is there's a sequence I did like where they do this sort of caper kind of heist scenario, and it's the sort of thing we've seen a million times in various films and TV, where the guy sort of puts on a set of overalls and tries to sort of get in, but he does it in such a naff way. It's sort of like, it just makes it incredibly obvious that he shouldn't be there. Looking at him very weird. But
then Scooty, they do the bit where Scooty falls down the sort of air duct, or the waste duct sort of thing, and that is that sort of cartoonish, the way they follow him down, and then he ends up in this sort of pit with like volcanic molten metal and stuff. It's really looks really great. And then he sort of starts talking to somebody who sort of go, "Oh, you meant to be there." It's very silly. It's very tongue in cheek. It's very light. It's very, for the most, it's a bit unfortunate really, because it's, for the most part, it's really family friendly, but there are a couple of F-bombs, or at least one F-bomb and stuff in there, which kind of makes it a bit a bit more of a 12 or 12A kind of experience, but otherwise it's very family friendly apart from that.
Indeed. Definitely worth checking out. We shall put a link in the footnotes below. Please go take a look. Our DTV throwback this week is Reigo, King of the Sea Monsters. Set in World War II, this film depicts an alternate history regarding the fate of the Japanese battleship Yamato. Okay, so in essence, we have a kaiju film. In essence, at least. Steve, how did he get on with Reigo?
Not very well, to be fair. I mean, we'll start off, the effects were terrible. For some reason, it looked like something off of PS1. It was like there's no attempt to make them look real in any way, shape, or form. The acting was terrible. It was so over the top in every situation. Every performance was awful. And it was obviously very, very cheaply made, but it kind of showed as well. There's only, I think it was supposed to be 5 or 6 different ships. And you could tell they're all filmed in the same room, if you know what I mean. They've just got different characters in there. Said, go crazy, go over the top, do what you want, because we're not going to give you any performance tips on this. Just it was shoddily made, shoddily acted, and mercifully short, shall we say. And again, the ending was the most random thing I've ever seen in my life, because you've got the bit where it's a kaiju film where they defeat the monster, and then it starts going on about 2 years after how the ship eventually sinks, and there's some ninja dancing on top of the ship, samurai dancing on the ship as well, and just very, very weird and shoddy, and no, not for me at all.
Rich, you were sort of enticed by this one. You know, the prospect of an unknown kaiju film sitting on Plex. What did you make of it?
Well, initially I was quite pleased because it's not dubbed. So
True.
I was quite, I was like, oh, okay, we've got that was the thing I was anticipating, is that it's been retitled from its original title, which basically translates as Reigo, the deep sea monster versus the battleship Yamato, I believe is the original title or translation of it. Which is a great title. I mean, the whole, because I know I've heard of the battleship Yamato. That's been the subject of some other films as well, and so it's got quite a cool sort of scale sound to it. But yeah, the low budget becomes immediately apparent. This was, I believe, independently made, so it's not from a major studio like the Godzilla or Gamera movies or anything. Yeah, it's not from any of them. It's a much lower budget affair, and it does really veer close. I think it's still better than, but it does veer very close to Asylum sort of mega shark territory, especially with the fact that you don't really see Reigo very much at all, which, to be fair, was also a problem with the 2014, I think, Godzilla movie. This was picked up for distribution and basically with artwork that copies the Godzilla King of the Monsters release in 2019. So they've used basically exactly the same design of cover to sort of sell this movie, and that was kind of what attracted my interest and curiosity. And I think there's some interesting stuff with the monster. It's not, for example, it's aquatic, so it doesn't have legs. So it kind of it's got the sort of head sort of style part of that you would expect from a kaiju, and but it sort of swims over, and so the design is quite interesting, but you don't really see a lot of it. It was quite there's a lot of really bad CG, and I wasn't sure whether how much of Reigo was CG. I think they did use models or some sort of costume, but it's kind of overlaid with a lot of visual effects as well, which are, as Steve said, not very good, especially when they're showing basically any bit where they show the ship is I would have loved to. I wish it was models. You know, that would have been sort of quirky and kitsched and authentic to the kind of movie. But the fact that they've gone for this really sort of cheap CG just doesn't really work. The film also has it's a lot of, you know, discussion, which again, a bit like Asylum, but also like something like Shin Godzilla, where, you know, it's people all these people sitting around thinking, how are we going to deal with this situation? So I'm not really hugely down on the film from that point either. But it is a film with some really odd things that they've added in as well. So I do like some of the monster attacks, although there aren't very many of them. I do like, there's some good stuff there, although they show up, they like something's gonna happen. Oh no, they cut away, you know. So you don't actually see anything. Then it's like a day later, or it's like, well, hang on a minute, the sequence was just getting started. But there's a bit where the generals or whatever are all sitting around, and a guy starts undoing his buttons, and they have this comedy sound effect for some reason. There's a bit at the start of the movie where the girls are all sort of gathering around. One of them sort of lifts up the skirt to show her pants, which sort of seemed a bit, you know, to show the other girls' pants. You know, they're sort of teasing her and stuff, which I thought again was sort of very, I mean, I suppose it's very Japanese. So it's like I've seen some quite odd Japanese movies that sort of veer into that. This isn't I've seen sleazier stuff, but it just sort of seemed a bit of an awkward moment to be happening, but it wasn't as sleazy as it could have been. And yeah, like Steve was saying, that whole sort of extended sort of epilogue, I'm not so down on the like kabuki guy or whatever, kabuki samurai dancing, you know, because I think there was some sort of statement or something that they were trying to make about the fate of the battleship Yamato, which was kind of going above my head really, but it just dragged on, and then they introduced these characters, and there's like, oh, there's that lady and all that kind of stuff, and it goes on for like 5 minutes, and it's not a long movie. It's only an hour and 20 minutes long. So I was just thinking, if it didn't really need that, and if I were I could understand why, you know, in the past you know, these kind of movies, you know, Japanese monster movies have been picked up and they've been re-edited, like obviously Godzilla King of the Monsters was, you know, the original one. And even like Godzilla 1984, they're, you know, adding Raymond Burr and all that sort of thing. And in this one, I think, you know, if they could have just re-edited it a bit, that would have sort of helped, you know, to do like an international version. I wouldn't have been against it if they'd have done that. And the so overall, I think I'm not again. It wasn't what I hoped it would be, but I also found enough interesting in it, I guess. And there's two others. You know, they're not. I don't think there's a series, but there are two other films from the same makers with other monsters. So Reigo, the monster from the deep sea, which I think is a variation, and then there's one called God Reigo versus King Ogre. I'd be curious to sort of check those out, but I've now, you know, my expectations are very much managed now in terms of what I might expect. You know, I think it's probably, you know, it's not Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus or something like that,
close.
but you know,
it
is close. Yeah.
I think you're both right with this one. It's the effects. You know, it's a real shame they couldn't have models, or you know, even a monster suit, even if it was a mixture of the two. You know, models for the ships and things. But it just doesn't work for me. I don't mind the talky bits too much. I didn't mind the acting. You know, I've seen plenty of low budget Japanese films over the years. I'm quite fine with it.
And the concept is good, isn't it? You know, a kaiju monster and the battleship and stuff. It's a great idea. I think it was made in 2005, but it got picked up for international in let's say 2018, 2019. So it's very much of its. I think it's, you know, it is a 2005-ish kind of looking movie, especially if you look at some of the. But even in 2005, some of the CGI, you know, you could. There was still better CGI. It would have been poor back then, I think, even.
Yeah, it's a bit of a miss, unfortunately. Yeah, basically that's it. It's you know, it's a curiosity one. You know, if you're a kaiju fan, I think that you're going to find this one disappointing, but it's available on Plex, I should say. So you might want to go and check it out. So yeah, there you go. There's not really much else to say on it. You know, we're not going to rag on it too much. Okay.
What about the American Soldier?
I thought he was all right. I thought that was okay, that sequence.
They kind of established him, and then he kind of disappeared from the movie, didn't he? I was like, right
at the end again.
Oh, was he? I can't remember.
Yeah.
They kind of. They kind of set up a lot of these characters, and I did get a bit lost with some of them. But I thought I wasn't down on most of the acting. I thought some of the characterization was quite decent, with especially with like the sort of senior military figures and stuff. I thought it was fine in that sense. But yeah, it's definitely I think probably more for, like, you know, people more hardcore. And you know, I think the monster actually, when you actually see what the creature actually looked like, and when they show it properly in the sort of model version, I think it looks pretty good. But I think maybe, who knows, restrictions, you know, maybe they only had one version of it, they could only use in one particular shot or something, or 2 or 3 shots, and then they had to CGI the rest of it. So I don't know, but say there's a kernel of something really good there, but it certainly doesn't live up to the name of the, you know, deep sea monster versus battleship Yamato. Woohoo, you know, it's like a bit like you know, when something like Boa versus Python comes out, it's like, you know, they try to set it up as like this big, it's going to be a big. It's actually a bit of a damp squib. Although I do actually really like Boa versus Python. I think although that was made on a really low budget, they did kind of pull off some sort of Michael Bay sort of stylistic touches in that particular one. Whereas this is quite a flat movie visually. You know, it's all shot in. It's, you know, it's got those sort of stagey bits. You can tell they're actually not on a ship and stuff like that. But yeah, so it was. I'm not down on watching it. I'm glad I've seen it, and I'm curious to check out the others. But it wasn't everything I hoped it would be.
Indeed. Okay, so we don't score the throwbacks, but we will put a link in the footnotes for you to go check it out. That is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Steve and Rich for working your way through these films this week. Some classics there for sure. Some which have definitely divided opinion. And shame on you both for not watching The Last Son. Other than that, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. You will also find the sister show, the DTV Digest Short Shots, where Rich puts a new short every evening around about 8 o'clock.
Yep, we've got about 500 now.
Got about 500. Awesome. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.